All right. I'd like to introduce you to one of my clients, Laura, who we started working together back in Thanksgiving of 2020. So it's been a little bit of time, but we worked together for our normal 10 weeks. And then she's been off on her own doing amazing things ever since. So Laura is a little bit older than my typical client. She's 21, and about once a quarter or every 10 or 12 weeks, I work individually with a college age student. So Laura fit into that category. So just so you guys know, she is actually in college, and I'll let her introduce herself a little bit, but she is not in high school. Okay, Laura, so go ahead and tell everyone just a little bit about who you are, and then we'll go into what life was like before we met.
Okay, awesome. So my name is Laura. I am going to be a senior at Gordon College. It's in the North Shore of Massachusetts. And I'm a communications and English major. And in my free time, I like to write and meet with friends. So.
Awesome. Laura, can you turn up your volume a little bit? Do you have a few more notches?
Like my mic?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm not sure. I'll just talk a little bit louder.
Okay, perfect. So where I usually like to start with these interviews is just kind of with you drawing a picture on what life was like before we met and just why you decided that coaching might be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I have struggled with social anxiety for several years now, probably since the time I was about 12 to 14 was really when it became super noticeable for me. And I'd gone to therapy like a few times for it. But it was really kind of unhelpful, to be honest. It was something that was very much like, take a look back at your past, and none of that was really helping. There was no like tools or no just real ways of solving it. And I think I told you, Jamie, the first time we talked, like the word I used was trapped, because I felt like totally trapped within this situation, just feeling like so nervous and so kind of like incapable in social situations. And it was really defeating because like deep down, like I knew that I had a lot to give, but I just wasn't able to access that or kind of just in any way kind of not prove, but like show what, those qualities that I had. And it was just extremely discouraging because I would be like with my family and I would be fine. But then anytime like I was nervous and I perceived someone to, I think, be like better than me, all of those kind of fight or flight instincts kind of kicked in, and it was just really debilitating. And I definitely think that through middle school and high school and even a little bit of college, it definitely held me back from certain relationships, friendships that I otherwise could have had. And so I kind of came to a breaking point where I was like, I really can't do this anymore and something needs to change, because I would go see a therapist, nothing would change. And I just like kind of came to the point where I was like, I need to do something about this. So I talked to my mom, and that's how we found Jamie. And ever since then, it's just been amazing.
Thank you for that. Okay, so maybe give a couple of examples of this trapped feeling, like very specific things that just, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, the first time I really noticed it was ages like 12 to 14. And it was kind of just like, I was a little bit tongue-tied. I just noticed that at first, when I was talking to people who maybe I was just really like intimidated by, like, I just would feel like I was fumbling my words, or I was saying the wrong thing, or I was just kind of beating myself up in my head and just kind of being like, oh, why did you say that? That was so dumb, which leads to, more nervousness and more saying dumb things. Or at least that's how I perceived it. So it was really just kind of like an endless cycle of negativity, where, I made myself so nervous that it had to be like this flawless social performance, that it ended up not being that. And then I would get really mad at myself, kind of replaying that image or replaying that conversation in my mind. So something that comes to mind immediately is just like talking to a guy that I thought was cute in high school. And I don't know, I thought like maybe he liked me too. I think that he did. And then we were just talking, and I just felt like so awkward. And I wasn't even thinking about the fact that he probably didn't even notice that. All I could think about was that I was trapped in my mind, just second guessing, questioning literally everything I said, did, or even thought. And it was just, it was just a feeling of being trapped. And I kind of looked at other people who maybe like didn't have that level of self-awareness, which, was probably more like self-criticism. And I just envied them because they seem to have, no difficulty talking to other people. So that was definitely an example. There's many more, but that's one that definitely comes to mind.
Okay. So when we actually met in the summer, and it just wasn't quite the right time. You were you were reading a book. So talk to me about how that went between summer and when we actually started working together in the fall.
Yeah, so I think it was about the summer where right before the summer that I talked to my mom and I just told her, I was like, I can't keep doing whatever I'm doing. And this is like an issue and it's actually holding me back in my life and I need to fix it. So it really kind of came to that point where I kind of like was like, we have to do something. And my mom was really great and she was really helpful with that. And we ended up looking into a book. It's called, what's it called?
Don't worry about it. It's okay.
It's a book about social anxiety. It's called How to Be Yourself, something about social anxiety. Anyway, I'd read a lot of self-help books, like ones that come to mind are like You Are a Badass and The Subtle Art of Not Giving a. So those were really helpful, I think, in high school and stuff like that. But it was really kind of one year out the other. But this book was different in the sense that it gave like applicable steps. So I worked at Marshall at the time. And so I started just kind of applying those steps to my life and just like as I was out and talking to people. And so that was helpful. It kind of like gave me a new way to think about social anxiety as something that can be conquered. And it's not like this thing that you're just always going to have to deal with. So having been so trapped and so discouraged for so long with this, I think it was so nice to kind of read in this book that like there are steps you can take through a lot of hard work to actually fix this issue and to change the way you think, and it is possible. So I think that's the biggest thing I got out of the book. I will say that doing those steps completely on my own was something that was a little bit difficult. So that's why I think like a life coach is really helpful because it is just honestly kind of hard to just kind of completely rewire the way you think totally by yourself. Sometimes it's nice to have somebody that's going to hold you accountable to that. But that book really, I just think really stood out to me because it did have like applicable steps.
Yeah. And I think that does set it apart from some books. And, working with girls, a lot of girls have read books by the time they get to me. And I love to read, right? But it is totally different to have a human being walking the walk with you and helping tweak the small things. Books are kind of like a one size fits all. But I think what that book did for you was gave you like that boost you need to be like, yes, I really can work on these things. So it was probably a great step before you and I met. All right. So then we decided to work together. What were you most hoping that would come out of our work?
I think I was most hoping for just a little bit of help with the social anxiety. I really kind of didn't come into it with like huge lofty expectations just because this is something that I have struggled with for so long. And I think I kind of did kind of see it as part of my identity at this point, sadly. So I was just hoping for like a little bit of help in social situations. I mean, obviously, ideally, I was looking for the problem to be solved, but I think just like realistically, I was very much in a place of like negativity and a little bit of frustration that I was just looking for kind of like, I guess, a Band-Aid solution, which is what I kind of been getting in therapy before. But obviously, the goal was to completely solve the issue.
It feels like a scary goal to put into the world, doesn't it? Because it's like fear of disappointment. Like, what if I fail? But we started working together, and maybe you talk to everybody about a few of your wins or things you started to notice shifting pretty early on in our work.
Yeah, and I just want to say too that when we first met, you had me write out like my big scary goal, which was to kind of rise above this issue and not have it kind of run my life anymore. And so that at the time was like seemed so impossible, but I do kind of feel like I'm on the other side of it now. But sorry, what was the question?
No, that was great. So when we started working together, I think one thing I love about coaching, tell me if I'm wrong, is that you can get really quick results, and that's motivating. So do you remember in the first couple of weeks, some of those wins that you experienced where it maybe like felt like you could accomplish that big scary goal?
Yeah, definitely. At the time I was working at Whole Foods when we were first meeting. And I think something that I normally would have, not done, as in, talk to my coworker or, make conversation with a customer just because it felt scary, it felt uncomfortable, it felt like something I did not want to do. I started to really do that and to push myself outside of my comfort zone. And I think with that came confidence. one thing that comes to mind is just making friends with a coworker I was like, just shopping with. We were shoppers at Whole Foods, and we would just kind of pass by each other. But I started to make conversation, and the result of that is that we became like, work friends. And so that's something that never would have happened before that. And like I said, with those situations, once you realize you can accomplish it, there is that added confidence to help you, do something maybe even a little bit like scarier next time.
Awesome. All right. So we worked a lot on rewiring negative self-talk, and we don't need to talk about the whole process, but this is kind of on the spot. So if it's hard to answer, that's okay. But can you think of a negative thought that you were able to turn into a more positive thought that's made a huge difference for you?
Yeah, I think that's honestly been the most helpful thing throughout this entire process. There's other parts of what we worked on together that have helped me, but I think obviously the biggest, most important thing is rewiring those negative voices in your mind that have maybe plagued you for years. But I think probably the biggest one was I am not confident, that voice over and over in my mind. And there was other ones that kind of were like attached to that, like I am not pretty, I am not funny, all these things that could pop up in social situations. But I think all of it stems from that core belief of I'm not confident. So I think going into conversations, being like, no, I am confident, and kind of like thinking about those things about yourself that you do like, and just reinforcing it. It's just repetition over and over and over, and it kind of feels like it's a habit that's impossible to break. But like working on it for like a month it's so helpful.
Yeah. So let's talk about like a bump in the road. Another thing I know to be true about coaching is we push through a lot of hard stuff. So there is sometimes some resistance. Do you remember a point in your 10 weeks where you felt that resistance? Sometimes it's like letting go of an old identity or shifting beliefs that you've held true for, 12 years. But where in the process, or if anywhere, did you feel a little bit of resistance?
Yeah, I think there were probably several points along the way where like those old thoughts come in, and even just a little bit of like imposter syndrome, like why am I even doing this, this is so stupid or whatever, like I'm not going to change, those really terrible thoughts that kind of pop into your head. I think that as I started to push myself more and more out of my comfort zone, I became more confident, but at the same time, like those goals were just like a little bit more scary. So I think sometimes I would just kind of hold myself back at the beginning of when we started working together. And so that was discouraging, knowing that like I could have taken certain opportunities and maybe didn't, just because fear was holding me back. And yeah, and then just, maybe having a bad week where I wasn't, practicing, journaling and those positive reinforcements, and then just kind of feeling myself slip back into old patterns was, yeah, definitely extremely discouraging. And I think that's why it's so helpful that I had you, because I think when you're alone trying to fix this issue and you do slip back, it's very, very hard to kind of get yourself back on track again.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. Okay. So maybe any other major wins throughout the 10 weeks that you want to share with everyone?
Yeah, I think nothing that's like a specific example necessarily, but I think just noticing when I was like in conversation or even just sitting by myself, like having like more positive thoughts. And this is going to sound weird, but like genuinely, when you do think those positive thoughts, it feels like a warm hug from like the inside out a little bit. And so it's just like, it's like a literal, like a physical feeling of just like warmth. And so it's just amazing to kind of feel that. And also to just kind of like not be so hard on myself in certain situations where like maybe I said something stupid or like I tripped, which happens a lot, and like it's really like it's not a big deal, and just kind of like feeling like the pressure was taken off was just really, really great.
So I have a win that I was just so thrilled and proud of you for. So when you wrote and gave a speech at your sister's wedding, like to me, it's like baby bird flew out of the nest. Like tell everybody about what that was like for you and that process and how it went.
Yeah. So just like with most people who have social anxiety, giving a speech in front of a crowd is not a fun thing to do, and my sister got married in January. And so she asked me to give a speech. I was the maid of honor. And I was very resistant to do this, but she's my sister. So I was like, all right, we'll do it. But I was not at all looking forward to it. Just because I've just, I was looking at my past and fixating on that, and looking at all those times where I like for class, had to get up and give a presentation, and I could feel my heart pounding and my knees shaking and everything. And so I think I kind of, for for a week or so, let that kind of, those memories kind of dictate how this next situation would go. But I think I kind of had to like dig into what we were learning and just kind of change the way I was thinking about this, and not focusing on the past, but focusing on the future and telling myself it was going to be good was a big thing. But yeah, eventually the day came, and I really rehearsed and practiced my speech. So obviously I was prepared, and I know that about myself. I know, like, in order to do something well, I need to be prepared. And I got up there, and it went very well. And I had really put myself in a place of confidence and yeah, and just a steadiness before that speech. And it honestly went as well as it could have gone. And I was really not nervous at all. And I think just looking out at the crowd, just being like, okay, they're on my side, instead of, in the past where I've been like, oh, they're all against me. It was just like, it was a very reassuring technique that really helped me. And yeah, I think that was definitely a big win for me.
Awesome. Okay, so our 10 weeks came and went. And one of the things I love most about coaching and the approach is that the wins keep coming for my clients. So while our work was done, did your growth just stop, or did it keep going?
It definitely didn't stop. I think it definitely kept going. And I think it kept going because I have taken the time every day to work on these things. I think it's tempting once like the 10 weeks are over, you feel like you have all these skills and just kind of like let it go. But I mean, the work really is just beginning, and it's kind of a lifelong process, but the results are absolutely worth it. And I think just, going into work now, or going to hang out with friends, and just not feeling that weight of social anxiety and of social fear, honestly, and just kind of letting myself be, has just been absolutely just so nice. And I mean, I've had friends, family comment that they've seen a difference in me. And so just hearing that, has just been really amazing, because it has been a lot of work, but just seeing the payoff has been so rewarding. And I honestly didn't think I would get here. So it's great to be on the other end.
And it is a lot of work. I'll give you that. But if you look at like where you were around Thanksgiving versus now, summer, like, worth the work, right?
Absolutely.
You can turn things around in a way that you've been feeling since you were 12 years old in, like 8 months.
Yeah. And that's what I do want to emphasize, is the fact that it is worth the work. And I think at the beginning stages where you are kind of stuck in those old patterns, it can feel like it's maybe not worth the work, but I just want to tell you that it absolutely is. And that you really can do whatever you set your mind to if you are fully invested in doing that. So
awesome. Okay, well, last thing, just tell me what's enjoyable about life now that you are freed from this trap of social anxiety.
Yeah. Well, I have a boyfriend now, so that's been kind of nice, because I remember talking to you, Jamie, about kind of wanting that maybe, and just kind of feeling fear when I talk to guys, honestly. And so that's been just, nice and enjoyable. And then just, hanging out with friends has just been a lot more peaceful. I feel like when I would drive to go meet a friend before, I would get like this fear of like, what if I'm weird, or what if I'm, all these things. And now I go hang out, and it's just peaceful, and it's just, I can just be. And that's kind of what I've just kind of been telling myself, like, just be, you don't have to be this, that, you can just be. So that's been really great. And yeah, I'm going to Italy in the fall, and I think that's a step that was certainly very daunting to make, but I'm really glad I did it. And I think if this program has taught me anything, it's that really good things happen when you push yourself outside of your comfort zone. So yeah, life has gotten really great the past few months. So yeah, I'm just really grateful to you, Jamie.
I'm really proud of you. Anything else you would like to share?
Yeah, I guess just like I already mentioned this, but just really keep up the fight, because even like I just remember being in such a low place, and just feeling so hopeless. But there really is a way, and like literally everything that you ever want in your life has to do with your mindset, and it has to do with having a right and positive mindset. And so I feel like we have so many cliches about that, but it honestly is true. And it took me a long time to realize that, but it will be worth it in the end.
You're like this beautiful ambassador for what's possible if you do a little bit of work on yourself. I love your story so much. And thank you for taking the time to share it with all of these moms who are looking for help, maybe with social anxiety, maybe with generalized anxiety, maybe their daughter has some depression, but you just give hope. So thank you for taking the time to share your story, Laura.
Yeah.
All right, take care.